Welcome to Part 82 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg, where we explore true crime, urban legends, mysterious disappearances, myths and legends, internet mysteries, and more. Quick reminder to click like and subscribe and the notification bell. The Gorman dogfight, an iconic early UFO encounter, took place on the night of October 1st, 1948, over Fargo, North Dakota. The key figure in the event was George F. Gorman, a 25-year-old second lieutenant in the North Dakota Air National Guard. Gorman, a World War II veteran, was flying a P-51 Mustang fighter as part of a training mission. After the other pilots in his squadron had landed, Gorman opted to continue flying due to the clear conditions, setting the stage for one of the most famous aerial encounters of its time. At approximately 9 p.m., Gorman noticed a strange object in the sky. Initially, it appeared to be a small lighted aircraft, but it soon became clear that this was something unusual. Gorman engaged the object in a 27-minute aerial dogfight. Throughout this intense encounter, the object demonstrated capabilities far beyond the known technology of the time. It could accelerate rapidly, make tight turns, and climb at speeds that outperformed Gorman's Mustang. At one point, Gorman reported that the object, a glowing white light about 6 to 8 inches in diameter, even performed a 180-degree turn and started chasing him. During the dogfight, Gorman reached speeds of 400 miles per hour, but was unable to keep up with the mysterious object. Despite Gorman's attempts to outmaneuver it, the object continued to evade him with ease. His descriptions of the object's movements suggested that it was controlled by intelligence, with maneuvers showing a level of deliberate thought. Gorman's aircraft temporarily stalled during the chase, causing him to lose sight of the object. However, before disappearing, the object made a vertical climb and vanished from view. Importantly, Gorman was not the only witness to the event. Several others on the ground and in the air corroborated his sighting. Two air traffic controllers at Hector Airport, H.E. Johnson and Lloyd Jensen, observed the encounter from their control tower. They described the object as moving extremely fast, noting that it appeared as a perfectly round light, without any discernible features or exhaust trail. Dr. A.E. Cannon, a pilot flying a Piper Cub in the vicinity, also witnessed the object and noted its extraordinary speed. Notably, all of the witnesses were extremely credible people with no secondary motivations like financial gain, which made the incident hard to dismiss. The incident quickly gained national attention, with many speculating about the nature of the object. Gorman's detailed account, paired with the corroborating witnesses, made this one of the most credible UFO reports of the era. The U.S. Air Force soon launched an investigation through Project Sign, which would later evolve into Project Blue Book, the government's formal investigation into UFO phenomena. Initially, investigators explored various possibilities, including whether Gorman had encountered a Soviet craft or some other form of advanced technology. However, after examining Gorman's plane, they found elevated levels of radiation, although this was later explained as a side effect of high-altitude flight. The Air Force ultimately concluded that the object Gorman had encountered was likely a lighted weather balloon. This explanation, though, did not satisfy all parties, to say the least. Gorman and several UFO researchers disagreed with the Air Force's assessment, citing the object's speed, maneuverability, and behavior as inconsistent with a weather balloon. Despite the official explanation, many continued to view the Gorman dogfight as one of the most perplexing UFO encounters of the time. Over the years, the Gorman dogfight has become a staple in UFO lore, frequently cited as one of the classic cases that helped ignite public interest in unidentified flying objects. Although the Air Force tried to explain away the encounter, the Gorman dogfight remains one of the most enduring UFO encounters. The story of the vanishing village of Lake Anjikuni is one of the most enduring mysteries to come out of Canada's remote Arctic region. Located near the lake in the Kivalliq region of what is now Nunavut, the village was reportedly inhabited by a group of Inuit people. One day in November 1930, the villagers seemingly disappeared without a trace. Joe LaBelle, a seasoned fur trapper, stumbled upon the village while seeking shelter, only to find it eerily deserted. LaBelle, who had been familiar with the village, arrived expecting the usual warm welcome from the Inuit inhabitants. Instead, he found the village completely abandoned. No signs of struggle were apparent. The villagers had left behind food, tools, and even personal belongings, as though they had vanished suddenly and without warning. Fires were still burning, and meals were left unfinished, adding to the growing sense of dread as LaBelle explored the area. Even the village dogs, a crucial part of Inuit life, had been found starved, further adding to the mystery. The events that followed LaBelle's discovery only deepened the mystery. After rushing to report his findings, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police launched an investigation. Although there were reports of disturbed graves in the village's cemetery, with headstones neatly stacked beside them, the RCMP could not determine what had happened to the inhabitants. No footprints or tracks were found, making it difficult to trace where, or how, the villagers might have left. The lack of evidence led to speculation, with some suggesting supernatural explanations. Over time, the story became more fantastical, as theorists tied the story to extraterrestrial encounters. UFO sightings were rumored in the area, with one trapper claiming to have seen a large cylindrical object over the lake, which then shifted into a bullet-like shape before disappearing. Such accounts fueled theories of extraterrestrial abduction, a notion that, though unproven, has fascinated UFO enthusiasts ever since. Despite these far-reaching speculations, the story of the Lake Anjikuni disappearance has never been conclusively explained. Even the RCMP, after an exhaustive investigation, could offer no official explanation. Over the years, details about the population size of the missing village have varied, with some reports claiming that hundreds, even thousands of people disappeared. However, most sources estimate the village's population to have been closer to 30, casting doubt on some of the more sensational retellings. One possible explanation for the sudden disappearance revolves around a harsh Arctic winter. Some suggest that the Inuit villagers may have left their homes in search of better conditions, but why they would have abandoned essential supplies, or left in such haste, remains a mystery. Others theorize that the villagers may have been displaced by a natural disaster, though no evidence of such an event has been found in the area. Notably, the modern RCMP has officially dismissed the case as either an exaggerated event, based on routine migration of Inuit populations, or as a complete fabrication. Further, the RCMP claims that they do not have any records of the event being reported to them, though they do admit that record-keeping in the area at the time was spotty at best. Some skeptics believe that the story was entirely made up, with the original story being traced back as far as a near-contemporaneous newspaper in Virginia, of all places. That said, Joe LaBelle, the fur trapper, is accepted to be a real person, and the possibility that the story did happen largely as reported remains. Another set of believers believe that the entire thing is a mass alien abduction incident, which was covered up by the Canadian government and the RCMP. This formulation provides a convenient explanation for why no contemporaneous RCMP records exist of the event. Nostradamus is perhaps the most famous seer in history that is not a holy man, with some placing significant weight upon his prophecies. His book, generally known in English as The Prophecies and published in 1555, contains hundreds of cryptic quatrains that many believe predict future events. These prophecies have intrigued people for centuries due to their perceived accuracy and the mysterious nature of their language, which blends French, Latin, and Greek. Nostradamus wrote his prophecies as a series of quatrains, four-line verses that were deliberately vague and obscure. This ambiguity has been a key factor in the endurance of his prophecies, as it allows for broad interpretations. His works have been translated into numerous languages, and Nostradamus enthusiasts continue to examine his writings to uncover potential insights into future events. Despite his cryptic language, Nostradamus gained substantial fame during his lifetime, largely due to the endorsement of influential figures like Catherine de' Medici, Queen Consort of France. She invited Nostradamus to her court in 1556, and his reputation as a visionary grew considerably. One of Nostradamus's most famous alleged predictions is the Great Fire of London in 1666. A particular quatrain, "The blood of the just will be demanded of London, burnt by fire in the year 66, is frequently cited as a direct reference to this event. The fire, which ravaged large parts of the city, broke out in early September 1666, and has often been interpreted as a fulfillment of this prophecy. While the prediction mentions the number 66 and a disaster befalling London, critics argue that the verse is too vague, and there are no clear references to the specific nature of the fire. Nonetheless, the close match of the year and location has made this one of the most cited accurate prophecies attributed to Nostradamus. One of Nostradamus's most chillingly accurate predictions, according to his followers, was the death of King Henry II of France. Nostradamus wrote, "The young lion will overcome the older one. On the field of combat in a single battle, he will pierce his eyes through a golden cage, 2 wounds made one, then he dies a cruel death." In 1559, Henry was killed during a jousting match when his opponent's lance shattered, and a fragment pierced the king's visor, entering his eye and fatally injuring him. The supposed accuracy of the prophecy has made it one of the most famous examples of Nostradamus's supposed abilities, especially for people contemporaneous with him. Nostradamus is also credited with predicting the rise of 2 of Europe's most infamously aggressive states, Napoleonic France and the Third Reich. In the case of Napoleon, some interpreters believe that Nostradamus's references to a great leader of Europe and an emperor are veiled allusions to the French ruler's ascent and conquests. However, others assert that in his lifetime, this much more likely referred to Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, King of Spain, Archduke of Austria, amongst numerous other titles. For the Third Reich, Nostradamus mentions a figure named Hister, though critics suggest that Hister refers to the ancient name for the Danube River. The ambiguity in Nostradamus's language again plays a key role in how these interpretations are applied to historical figures. Another popular interpretation of Nostradamus's quatrains involves the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. A verse translated to mean, "The great man will be struck down in the day by a thunderbolt, an evil deed foretold by the bearer of a petition, has been associated with Kennedy's tragic assassination in 1963. Supporters of Nostradamus's prophecies suggest that the imagery of a thunderbolt could represent a gunshot, and the great man symbolizes the president. Despite the lack of specific names or concrete details, these associations have been sufficient for many to believe that Nostradamus predicted this significant event. Another notable interpretation of Nostradamus's predictions is his alleged foretelling of the French Revolution. One quatrain refers to the enslaved populace rising up against their lords and masters. Many believe this is a reference to the French Revolution, which began in 1789, leading to the fall of the monarchy and the rise of the Republic. The imagery of a populace overthrowing its rulers fits well with the events of the French Revolution, particularly the storming of the Bastille and the subsequent ending of King Louis XVI. However, others have interpreted the language as speaking about anti-colonial movements, or the Haitian Revolution, or any number of other events. Once again, Nostradamus's broad and allegorical language has allowed for such interpretations. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here taking a second to gently remind you to like and subscribe and to hit the notification bell. Also remember, if you want to take it to the next level, you can do so with the Patreon or with a YouTube membership. Benefits include occasional early access to new content and shoutouts, and just generally helping the channel continue on. The Emerald Buddha stands as one of Thailand's most revered religious artifacts, housed at Wat Phra Kaew in Bangkok. Its origins and history are largely wrapped up in mystery, combining historical records with rich legends. The Emerald Buddha was first officially documented in 1434 in northern Thailand, in the town of Chiang Rai. According to one popular account, a lightning strike cracked open a pagoda, revealing a small Buddha statue covered in stucco. When the outer layer of stucco was removed, the green stone figure beneath was discovered, initially believed to be carved from emerald, hence the name. In reality, the statue is made of jadeite, or jasper, not emerald, though the green hue continues to be its defining feature. Following its discovery, the Emerald Buddha embarked on a long and tumultuous journey across various kingdoms and cities. It was transported to Lampang, then Chiang Mai, and finally found its way to Laos. Most of these movements were more accurately described as looting of the Emerald Buddha by conquering armies, but I digress. The statue spent over 200 years in Luang Prabang and Vientiane before returning to Siam, modern Thailand, in the late 18th century. It was brought back during the reign of King Taksin, who retrieved it after the sack of Vientiane. Under King Rama I, the statue found its permanent home in the newly constructed Wat Phra Kaew in Bangkok in 1784. While its history from the 15th century onward is fairly well documented, the earlier origins of the Emerald Buddha remain a mystery. Various legends claim the statue was created in India around 50 BC, crafted by an early Buddhist holy man. From India, it supposedly traveled to Sri Lanka, where it was hidden to protect it from civil unrest, before eventually making its way to Cambodia and then Thailand. Another theory proposes that the Emerald Buddha was crafted in Sri Lanka and sent as a gift to a kingdom in Southeast Asia, though no records exist to confirm this. Other theories propose that the statue may have been made in Southeast Asia, likely in Thailand, Laos, or Cambodia around the 15th century. Some art historians believe the Emerald Buddha is an example of Lanna art, a style that flourished in the Lan Na Kingdom, now northern Thailand, during the same period. The lack of definitive historical records before its discovery has only added to its enigmatic and mystical reputation. The Emerald Buddha holds a central place in Thai spiritual and political life. It is believed to have potent protective powers, often seen as a symbol of divine kingship and the sanctity of the Thai monarchy. The statue has been associated with miraculous abilities, including bringing rain during droughts, ensuring prosperity, and safeguarding the kingdom from enemies. One notable claim surrounding the Emerald Buddha comes from a unique historical fact about Thailand. Thailand is one of the only countries in the world that was never colonized in any meaningful capacity by European or American powers. Some attribute this fact to Thailand's possession of the Emerald Buddha. Historically, it was carried into battle and moved during times of crisis to harness its supposed power over the nation's fate. One of the more enduring rituals involving the Emerald Buddha is the changing of the robes. The statue is dressed in seasonal attire 3 times a year by the King of Thailand or a senior monk, symbolizing the connection between the spiritual and temporal realms. The Kidding Vor, also referred to as the snake-eating cow, is a cryptid that is said to inhabit the forests of Cambodia and Vietnam. This elusive animal has been a subject of fascination for cryptozoologists and local folklore, often described as a cow-like creature with distinctive spiral-shaped horns. Despite the ongoing debate about its existence, the Kidding Vor has gained international attention due to the controversy surrounding its classification and the alleged physical evidence found over the years. The creature is typically portrayed as a bovid, similar in appearance to a small cow or buffalo, with notable twisting horns measuring around 45 centimeters in length. These horns, which resemble corkscrews, are a key feature of the animal's reported morphology. The fur of the Kidding Vor is said to be spotted, adding to its unusual and distinctive look. According to some accounts, the animal is believed to possess carnivorous tendencies, particularly a preference for snakes, which gave rise to its nickname, snake-eating cow. The first major report regarding the Kidding Vor came in the 1990s. Wolfgang Peter and Andreas Feiler, zoologists from Germany, discovered what were believed to be the horns of an unknown bovid species in a market in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. This led to the formal classification of the creature as Pseudonavibos spiralis in 1994. Notably, this is one of very few cryptids which has been given a formal scientific name which has been accepted by the mainstream scientific community, at least for a time. Following this, other horn specimens were collected and analyzed, further fueling speculation that this was indeed a newly discovered animal. However, controversy quickly arose as researchers began to question the authenticity of these horns. Several scientists examined the horns and found that they might have been manipulated or even fabricated from domestic cattle horns. DNA analyses conducted on these horns yielded conflicting results, with some studies suggesting that the horns came from cattle rather than a unique species. Despite these findings, the possibility of the Kidding Vor being a real, albeit rare species has not been completely dismissed. The International Union for Conservation of Nature once listed the Kidding Vor as a critically endangered species, though it later removed the species from its database due to the lack of evidence. If the Kidding Vor does exist, it would likely be extremely endangered due to habitat destruction and overhunting in Cambodia and Vietnam. Deforestation and human encroachment have decimated populations of large mammals in these regions, and the same factors would pose a significant threat to any surviving members of this elusive species. The potential discovery of the Kidding Vor would have important implications for the cryptozoology community as well. The discovery of an entirely new large species living in a fairly densely populated area would provide some potential evidence of existence of other large cryptids in similar circumstances. Werewolves are creatures who transform from human to wolf, often under the influence of the full moon. The word werewolf itself originates from an Old English term which combines were, meaning man, and wolf, meaning, well, I'll let you guess what that term means, to describe a man-wolf hybrid. Stories of such transformations are spread across many cultures, but they are most commonly associated with European folklore, dating back to at least the medieval period. The belief in werewolves, or lycanthropes, is intertwined with ideas of magic, curses, and religious interpretations, particularly in the Christian tradition. In early narratives, becoming a werewolf was often portrayed as a form of divine punishment. For instance, the legend of the werewolves of Ossory in Ireland tells of a clan cursed by St. Patrick for their defiance, transforming them into wolves for 7 years as retribution. In medieval Europe, werewolves were frequently associated with the devil and accused of malevolent acts. The peak of werewolf hysteria coincided with the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries. Werewolves were often mentioned in these trials, particularly in parts of Germany, France, and Switzerland. Sometimes these trials would even be lumped together in infamous werewolf witch trials, where a witch was accused of being a werewolf or associating with them. Like witches, individuals accused of lycanthropy were subject to brutal interrogations and executions. However, the trials for werewolves were far less frequent than those for witches. The lore of werewolves includes a wide range of regional variants. In France, for instance, the loup-garou was a prominent figure in local folklore. These werewolves were believed to be individuals who transformed into wolves as a punishment for their sins, or due to a curse. The idea of transforming into a wolf by a curse or bite, particularly under the full moon, became a common trope, especially in later interpretations and adaptations of the myth. In fiction, werewolf stories have been a popular topic for almost a millennium now. Medieval tales like Bisclaveret, a 12th century narrative by Marie de France, laid the foundation for modern werewolf literature. In this now little known but highly influential story, a nobleman transforms into a wolf but retains his human intelligence and character. Modern portrayals often depict werewolves as tragic figures, cursed to uncontrollably transform during the full moon and struggling to retain their humanity. Modern sightings of werewolves, though rare, have been reported around the world, particularly in rural areas. In the United States, for example, Michigan's Dogman has been a subject of fascination since the late 19th century. Further skinwalkers, while not being werewolves in the strict sense, are said to sometimes transform themselves into wolves or dog-like creatures. Easter Island, known as Rapa Nui to its indigenous people, is one of the most remote inhabited islands in the world. Located in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, the island is famed for its nearly 900 monumental statues, known as moai, created by the early Rapa Nui people. Easter Island was settled by Polynesians between 700 and 1200 AD, with some estimates suggesting arrival closer to 800 AD. These settlers, navigating thousands of miles of ocean, established a society that would become renowned for its remarkable cultural and architectural achievements. The moai statues, some standing up to 30 feet tall and weighing as much as 82 tons, were erected to honor ancestors and possibly served religious or social functions. These statues were primarily carved from volcanic tuff found in the Rano Raraku quarry and transported across the island, a feat that still puzzles researchers today. The Rapa Nui society was divided into clans, each led by a chieftain. The construction of moai was likely a communal effort, reflecting a high degree of social organization and cooperation. The islanders developed a unique script known as Rongorongo, though its meaning remains largely undeciphered. This script likely represents one of the few known examples of an independent writing system developed in a prehistoric society. The downfall of Easter Island civilization is often attributed to environmental degradation. As the population grew, the demand for resources increased. Trees were cut down for agriculture, boat building, and moving the moai statues. This extensive deforestation led to soil erosion, reduced crop yields, and the loss of raw materials necessary for daily life and further moai construction. By the time European explorers arrived in the early 18th century, the island was largely deforested, and the society was in decline. Further, in an ironic and sad twist, It is speculated that the Rapa Nui attempted to devote more time to Moai construction and care the more society declined. Internal conflicts exacerbated the island's struggles, especially given that the island was never known to have been ruled by a single chieftain. Clans engaged in wars, often toppling each other's Moai statues in a display of dominance. These conflicts further weakened the society, making it vulnerable to external threats. The first recorded European contact occurred in 1722 when Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen arrived, estimating the population at around 3,000 inhabitants. Further, he noted the society to be fairly healthy at that point. Subsequent visits by Spanish and British explorers in the late 18th century found a dramatically reduced and struggling population. European contact brought devastating consequences. Diseases to which the Rapa Nui had no immunity, such as smallpox, and raids by Peruvian traders in the 1860s decimated the population. By 1877, only 111 native inhabitants remained. The introduction of European livestock and plants further disrupted the local ecosystem. The island was eventually annexed by Chile in 1888, but its residents were not granted Chilean citizenship until 1966. Today, Easter Island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting researchers and tourists alike who are fascinated by its history and cultural heritage. The Rapa Nui people continue to live on the island, largely maintaining their cultural traditions. Bergman's bear is a cryptid said to inhabit the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. This large bear species was first described in 1920 by Swedish zoologist Steen Bergman, who examined a hide and footprints that differed significantly from those of the local brown bears. The hide was notably larger, and the footprints measured an impressive 15 by 10 inches, suggesting a much larger animal than the common brown bear in the region. Bergman himself never saw a live specimen, basing his identification solely on the physical evidence he encountered during his time studying Kamchatkan wildlife. Bergman described the bear's fur as short and black, unlike the longer coats typical of other Kamchatkan brown bears. The significant size difference led him to propose that this was not just a larger brown bear, but a distinct subspecies. The bear has never been definitively seen since Bergman's observations, leading many to believe that it may have gone extinct or may have never existed at all. Bergman's bear skeptics note that Bergman himself never actually saw the bear, and that many of his observations may have been in error. For instance, some suggest the large footprint he encountered was in fact a partially melted footprint of a regular Kamchatkan brown bear. The Kamchatka Peninsula's remote and largely inaccessible geography further adds to the Bergman's bear mystery. For much of the Cold War, the region was largely closed off due to military restrictions, even to Soviet citizens, which could explain why no further significant evidence has emerged. Some have speculated that the isolation of the area might have allowed the population to survive longer than previously thought. The concept of reality being a simulation, often referred to as the simulation hypothesis, has garnered significant attention in both philosophical discourse and popular culture. This theory suggests that what we perceive as reality might, in fact, be an artificial simulation, possibly run by an advanced civilization. The notion is deeply rooted in both contemporary technology and long-standing philosophical inquiries about the nature of existence. One of the most prominent proponents of the simulation hypothesis is philosopher Nick Bostrom. In his seminal 2003 paper, Bostrom argues that at least one of the following propositions is likely true. 1. Civilizations like ours typically do not reach a level of technological maturity capable of creating simulated realities. 2. If they do reach such a level, they are unlikely to produce a significant number of simulations. Or 3. We are almost certainly living in a simulation. Bostrom's trilemma is predicated on the assumption that future civilizations with vastly superior computing power might run numerous simulations of their ancestors, thus making it statistically probable that we are among those simulations rather than the original beings. Another related concept is that of hyperreality, introduced by the philosopher Jean Baudrillard. Hyperreality refers to a condition in which the distinction between reality and simulation blurs, leading to a situation where simulated experiences are perceived as more real than reality. This concept is crucial in understanding the cultural implications of the simulation hypothesis, as it suggests that in a hyperreal world, the lines between the real and the simulated are not just blurred, but may be entirely erased. Baudrillard's theory implies that in such a world, people might not only live in a simulation, but also prefer the simulated experiences over real ones, finding fulfillment in artificial constructs. The simulation hypothesis also finds parallels in the experience machine thought experiment proposed by philosopher Robert Nozick. Nozick's scenario asks whether people would choose to plug into a machine that could provide them with any experience they desired, indistinguishable from reality. The thought experiment challenges the value of real experiences over simulated ones, suggesting that simulations could provide perfect pleasure or satisfaction. This thought experiment resonates with modern-day concerns about virtual reality and its potential to replace actual experiences with digital ones. The possibility that we might already be living in a simulation has profound implications for our understanding of existence, morality, and the future of humanity. If our reality is indeed a simulation, questions arise about the nature of our creators, their intentions, and the ethical considerations of creating simulated beings capable of suffering and joy. The kidney removal urban legend, often referred to as the kidney heist, is one of the most enduring and chilling modern urban legends. It typically involves a person, usually a tourist or businessman, who is drugged by strangers, only to awaken in a bathtub filled with ice and a note instructing them to call emergency services. Upon medical examination, they discover that one of their kidneys has been surgically removed, supposedly to be sold on the black market. This legend has been circulating widely since at least the early 1990s, although its origins are difficult to pin down exactly. The basic plot of the legend remains consistent. A man is lured into a vulnerable situation, usually through a casual meeting at a bar with a beautiful woman, then drugged and surgically violated. Although this story sounds plausible given the rise of organ trafficking concerns, it is widely regarded as an urban myth. The narrative often involves specific elements that make it seem credible, such as the mention of the victim waking up in a bathtub of ice, an image that evokes urgency and medical necessity. In reality, this is an unrealistic scenario for organ theft, as organs require highly specialized conditions for successful removal and transplantation. For instance, kidneys need to be removed in sterile environments by trained surgeons, immediately cooled, and transported under strict conditions. This urban legend saw a particular surge in popularity in the late 1980s and 1990s. One possible origin story connects the legend to a report in 1989 involving a Turkish man named Ahmet Kosh, who claimed he was tricked into having his kidney removed while in the UK. His story, though later proven to involve a consensual organ sale, was widely misinterpreted and likely contributed to the myth. Media reports sensationalized the case, framing it as an example of international organ theft. Although Kosh's actual involvement in selling his organ was later revealed, the story had already caught the public imagination. The myth of the kidney heist has grown legs in various parts of the world, with local adaptations that make it more resonant to different cultures. Some variants of the legend insist that in New Orleans the practice is so widespread that the police department had to create an official handout warning tourists to protect their kidneys. While the details of the legend are unrealistic, illegal organ sales and transplants do occur in many parts of the world, particularly in impoverished regions. In countries like India, reports have emerged of criminal syndicates exploiting vulnerable individuals for their organs, sometimes through coercion or deceit. For instance, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, several cases were uncovered in which laborers were tricked into quote-unquote donating their kidneys under false pretenses. However, these instances involve a degree of consent and are far from the sensationalized horror movie scenario presented in the urban legend. The storyline of kidney theft has appeared in television shows, including episodes of Law and Order and The X-Files, reinforcing the idea in popular culture. Although there have been no verified cases of involuntary kidney theft like the ones described in the urban legend, the fact that organ trafficking is a global issue keeps this story alive. The slaying of Kirsten Davis, a 21-year-old college graduate, remains an unsolved tragedy more than 3 decades after the event. On July 3, 1991, Davis was en route to visit a friend in Vidalia, Georgia, after graduating from Berry College in Rome, Georgia, with plans to begin a career in teaching. Her promising life was abruptly cut short when her car was found overturned on a rural stretch of Highway 297 near the border of Toombs and Emmanuel counties, with Davis inside. She had been shot in the face and neck with a shotgun, killing her instantly. The slaying occurred just 30 minutes before her car was discovered by passers-by at approximately 1:30 a.m. Kirsten Davis did not fit any of the usual profiles of individuals who encounter foul play, suggesting the act may have been completely random. The events leading up to her death were both puzzling and tragic. Davis was about 5 miles from her destination when another vehicle pulled alongside her, and someone inside fired the fatal shots. Investigators initially suspected that her car's subsequent crash into a ditch was a result of losing control after being shot, as there were no signs of skidding or a sudden attempt to avoid a collision. Despite extensive investigations, the case has remained cold, with no clear motive or suspect identified. A curious and unsettling development emerged shortly after Davis's end, when Tracy and Karen Wilkes, a married couple from Emmanuel County, reported discovering her body. This couple later became suspects in another crime, a slaying and arson involving a 69-year-old man, Merrill V. Hudson, whom they killed in a home invasion just a few weeks after finding Davis's body. The Wilkes duo's involvement in this separate violent crime raised suspicions about their potential role in Davis's case. However, both passed polygraph tests, and investigators found no concrete evidence linking them to the shooting. And yes, I know polygraph tests are not in any way determinative or admissible as evidence, but they are an investigative tool at the very least. Over the years, all apparent leads have been exhausted, and authorities continue to seek new information in the case. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation and local law enforcement remain engaged in the investigation, offering a $10,000 reward for any details that could help solve the case. One possible theory posited by those familiar with the case is that the shooting may have been an accident. Given the remote area where the crime occurred, some speculate that an intoxicated individual or someone recklessly handling a firearm might have shot Davis without intending to harm anyone. Under this theory, the shooter may have simply been recklessly shooting off a shotgun with no care for those potentially around him. If you have any information regarding the slaying of Kirsten Davis, please reach out to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Also, this was a recommendation by Discord community member Bumblebee48. Remember to leave your recommendations in the comments section or to click the description and join the Discord server to leave suggestions there. Amy Bechtel, a 24-year-old runner and resident of Lander, Wyoming, vanished while on a run through the Shoshone National Forest on July 24, 1997. Despite an exhaustive search and numerous leads, no substantial evidence has ever emerged to explain her disappearance. Amy's day began with routine activities and nothing apparently out of the ordinary. She taught a fitness class in the morning, ran errands, and planned to spend the afternoon mapping a course for an upcoming 10K race she was organizing. She was last seen at around 2:30 p.m. at a local store called Gallery 331 before heading to the forest. When she did not return home that evening, her husband, Steve Bechtel, became concerned. He and friends searched for her, eventually finding her car near Burnt Gulch, off Loop Road. Her sunglasses, keys, and to-do list were found in the car, but her wallet was missing. There were no signs of a struggle, leaving investigators baffled. The initial investigation considered several possibilities, including an accident, an animal attack, intentional disappearance, or foul play. The Wind River Mountains, where Amy was last seen, are rugged and remote, with many hazards. However, after days of searching, no remains or evidence of an accident were found. Investigators considered the idea that she might have fallen victim to a bear or mountain lion attack, but this theory also failed to yield any definitive clues. Steve Bechtel, Amy's husband, quickly became a person of interest in the case. Authorities focused on his behavior and the discovery of disturbing writings in his journals. These writings described violent themes and included references to slaying and hiding bodies, which raised suspicions. Steve explained that the writings were song lyrics for his band and had nothing to do with his wife or her disappearance. He was questioned by police, but refused to take a polygraph test on the advice of his attorney. Despite this, investigators could not definitively tie him to the case, and he maintained his innocence. Over the years, several potential leads surfaced, but led nowhere. In one instance, a Timex Ironman watch, similar to one Amy owned, was found near the Popo Aggie River, but it could not be conclusively linked to her. Investigators also explored the possibility that convicted killer Dale Wayne Eaton, Wyoming's only death row inmate, may have been involved. Eaton was in the area around the time of Amy's disappearance, and his past crimes bore some similarities to the case. However, Eaton has never cooperated with law enforcement, and no direct evidence has tied him to the case. While some believe she was abducted, others think she may have met with an accident in the wilderness, or that foul play was involved. In 2004, Amy was declared legally dead at the request of Steve Bechtel. To this day, no one has been charged, and no trace of Amy Bechtel has been found, and the case remains cold. If you have any information with respect to the disappearance of Amy Bechtel, please contact the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. The Lesser Key of Solomon is a highly influential grimoire on demonology and the occult, compiled in the mid-17th century from various sources dating back at least several centuries earlier. This text, attributed to King Solomon, is a seminal work in Western esotericism and is primarily concerned with the summoning and control of spirits, both demonic and angelic. The Lesser Key of Solomon is rooted in a complex tradition of medieval and Renaissance magic, and possibly even magical traditions stretching back to antiquity. While it is traditionally attributed to King Solomon, further additions were noted have been made through earlier grimoires, Jewish and Christian mysticism, Christian demonology, and astrology. The Lesser Key of Solomon is divided into 5 distinct books, each dealing with different aspects of magic and spirit conjuration. The first and most well-known section, Ars Goetia, details the 72 demons that King Solomon supposedly bound and controlled. This section provides descriptions of each demon, their powers, their ranks, and how they can be summoned. The demons listed include well-known figures like Baal, Paimon, and Asmodeus. The Ars Theurgia Goetia deals with a different class of spirits, known as aerial spirits, and details complex rituals for summoning and controlling them. Unlike the demons of the Ars Goetia, these spirits are more ambiguous and are not necessarily evil. The spirits in this section are tied to specific directions on the compass, with various emperors, dukes, and princes ruling over them. The Ars Paulina is divided into 2 distinct parts. The first part deals with the 24 angels of the hours of the day, while the second part addresses the angels ruling over the degrees of the zodiac. It claims to be based on the teachings of Paul the Apostle and esoteric traditions developed by his followers in the millennia that followed. The Ars Almadel focuses on the summoning of angelic beings associated with specific regions of the heavens. This book describes the creation of a magical wax tablet known as the Almadel, which is used to communicate with these angels. The final section, the Ars Notoria, is a collection of prayers and meditations designed to enhance the magician's memory and understanding. Unlike the other books, which focus on the summoning of spirits, the Ars Notoria is more concerned with the development of the practitioner's intellectual and spiritual abilities. Notably, this section has been omitted from many collections of this grimoire, which some conspiracy theorists speculate indicates a special power associated with this esoteric knowledge. The Lesser Key of Solomon has had a profound impact on the development of Western esotericism. It was notably edited and published by Aleister Crowley in the early 20th century. His edition, known as the Goetia, the Lesser Key of Solomon the King, helped to popularize the text among modern occultists and brought it to a wider audience. Crowley added his interpretations and modifications to the text, blending it with his own theories of magic and psychology. The ancient astronaut theory is a controversial hypothesis that proposes the idea that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in antiquity and made significant contributions to human civilizations. This theory has intrigued many and has inspired countless books, documentaries, and perhaps most notably the television series Ancient Aliens. The origins of this theory can be traced back to early science fiction, but it gained widespread attention in the 20th century through the works of key figures such as Erich von Däniken and Zecharia Sitchin. The concept of ancient astronauts is rooted in the idea of paleocontact, the supposed prehistoric interactions between humans and extraterrestrial beings. Early references to such ideas appeared in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in the realm of science fiction, with H.G. Wells being particularly famous for this. Early fictional accounts laid the groundwork for more serious interpretations of ancient astronaut theories in the decades that followed. The theory gained significant traction in the 1960s, largely due to the publication of Erich von Däniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, in 1968. Von Däniken argued that many ancient structures, such as the Egyptian pyramids, Stonehenge, and the Moai statues of Easter Island, were far too advanced to have been constructed by the societies that built them. Instead, he suggested that these were the works of extraterrestrial visitors, or that these civilizations had received advanced knowledge from these beings. Von Däniken also interpreted ancient artwork and religious texts as depictions of astronauts, spacecraft, and other advanced technology that could not have been understood by people of that era. Another significant proponent of the ancient astronaut theory is Zecharia Sitchin, whose work focused on the Sumerian civilization. In his 1976 book, The 12th Planet, Sitchin proposed that the Anunnaki, a group of deities in Sumerian mythology, were actually extraterrestrial beings from a planet called Nibiru. According to Sitchin, these beings created humans through genetic engineering to mine gold for them. He argued that many ancient texts, including the Bible, were misinterpreted accounts of real events involving these extraterrestrial visitors. Sitchin's interpretations of ancient texts were controversial, and his work has been criticized by scholars for inaccuracies in translation and interpretation. Nevertheless, his ideas have had a lasting impact on the development of the ancient astronaut theory. The ancient astronaut theory has had a profound influence on popular culture. One of the most notable examples is the television series Ancient Aliens, which premiered in 2009. The series, which is heavily inspired by the works of von Daniken in particular, explores the idea that extraterrestrials have been visiting Earth for thousands of years. The show presents a wide range of evidence, from ancient texts and artifacts to unexplained phenomena. This evidence is generally presented in a way to suggest support for the hypothesis that ancient civilizations were influenced by advanced beings from other worlds. The series has been both popular and polarizing, with some viewers captivated by the possibilities it presents, while others dismiss it as pseudoscience. The Itachi, or weasel, holds a special place in Japanese folklore, appearing as a yokai associated with mischief, trickery, and sometimes even extreme danger. The physical characteristics of the Itachi appears to be quite routine at first glance. It's depicted as a Japanese weasel with an orange-brown coat, small forward-facing eyes, and a long, slender body. Much like an actual Japanese weasel, they are noted to be able to stand up on their hind legs. However, where the Itachi weasel yokai really becomes a problem for humans is that it has a unique ability to stand upon each other's shoulders when threatened. When the Itachi does this, they are said to gain the ability to summon large flaming pillars, which are known to start forest fires, amongst other issues. In Japanese folklore, the Itachi is often viewed as a sign of bad luck. Its cries are considered ominous, with their calls frequently signaling impending misfortune or disaster. In some stories, hearing the scream of an Itachi would bring illness or death to those nearby, amplifying its reputation as a malevolent being. The association between Itachi and ill omens goes deep, as its cunning and stealthy nature made it a symbol of sneakiness and deceit. A significant variation of the Itachi yokai is the Kamaitachi, also known as the sickle weasel. These creatures are said to move at lightning speed, riding on the wind to deliver sharp, painless cuts with their sickle-like claws. These attacks leave their victims with strange, sometimes fatal injuries, though often the cuts are magically healed immediately after the individual succumbs to their injuries. The Kamaitachi is typically depicted as a group of three weasels. The first knocks a person down, the second cuts them with its claws, and the third heals the wounds. This bizarre and supernatural method of attack, with minimal visible harm but significant damage and fear, makes the Kamaitachi one of the more feared yokai. The Kamaitachi is particularly feared in snowy regions of Japan, where sudden gusts of wind are common, and injuries attributed to these winds were traditionally tied to this creature. If you like this video, please do me a huge favor and click like and subscribe, and also click the share button and send it to anyone who you think may enjoy it. Also, I release content regularly, so remember to click the notification bell and turn on all notifications for my channel. Shout out to my patrons Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Courtney Hammett, Out of Gray's Mind, Cap, Zach Steele, Franz Tech, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Metanova, Will Roan, Crab Nebula, and Blasphemous.